The first Royal Caribbean cruise ship to return to service had a COVID-19 scare on board, and I've got all the details on what happened and why it's not all bad news up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and Royal Caribbean's first cruise ship to restart operations, Quantum of the Seas, had a COVID-19 scare on board, and this is a evolving situation, but here's what we know and what also you should keep in mind when looking at all of this news. So, Royal Caribbean's Quantum of the Seas was sailing on her third sailing back into service, and a guest went and complained to the ship's medical staff that they weren't feeling well. A COVID-19 test was conducted and it came back positive. As a result, Quantum of the Seas had her cruise cut short when that 83-year-old passenger reported not feeling well, and the medical staff conducted a mandatory PCR test that did come back positive, as we mentioned. Along with isolating the passenger, anyone that came in close contact, including crew members and other guests, were also tested and isolated on board. Quantum of the Seas returned to the Marina Bay Cruise Center in Singapore, and after the passenger in question was taken off the ship and brought to a local medical facility, the other guests on board Quantum of the Seas were able to disembark in groups and all underwent an antigen rapid test before returning home. Another precautionary step Royal Caribbean took was to cancel the next sailing of Quantum of the Seas, which was scheduled for December 10th. Fast forwarding a little bit, that passenger who tested positive for COVID on the cruise ship had 2 follow-up tests in Singapore, and both tests have come back negative. Singapore's Ministry of Health said in 2 different tests, the results have been negative for COVID-19, and a third test is planned. Now, while a coronavirus scare on a cruise ship, false positive or not, is never anything good, the good news, if you want to look at it this way, is that the new health protocols that Royal Caribbean spent so much time on are in fact working well. One passenger tested positive and was quickly isolated. There were no widespread infections on the ship, and the ship was not held indefinitely in quarantine, and passengers were able to disembark after returning to Singapore. The important takeaway here is not that there was a positive case on the cruise ship, but instead that of over 1,600 passengers on board, only one was discovered and isolated. The cruise industry, of course, is under the microscope of public opinion, and they've been living under the shadow of some really well-known long-term quarantine events that happened early in 2020 when the virus was first spreading around the globe. And similar to how airports radically changed protocols after the September 11th attacks, the cruise industry has reevaluated all of its protocols to come up with a new approach. With Quantum of the Seas, there is a holistic, start-to-finish new approach to what cruising is all about. In fact, we did a video not too long ago talking about some of these big changes that Royal Caribbean has implemented on its cruise ships. And this includes a number of new changes, including masks, social distancing, testing, and more. Royal Caribbean seems satisfied that, quote, they were able to quickly identify the single case and take immediate action is a sign that the system is working as it was designed to do, end quote. Moreover, Royal Caribbean said for a while these protocols will need to evolve and adjust as necessary. But you need to understand that the takeaway from all of this, there was no widespread infections on the ship. The ship was not held indefinitely in quarantine, and passengers were able to disembark after returning to Singapore. This is the result of 2 major things. Number one, of course, the new protocols we talked about, and also a tight coordination with the government of Singapore to anticipate a scenario like this. What happened on Quantum of the Seas was a plan in place, was executed precisely, and it seemed to have worked. Royal Caribbean's ability to offer cruises has been a result of something called the Safe Cruising Pilot Program that the government of Singapore has given certain companies like Royal Caribbean the opportunity to operate cruises in a very strict manner. And there's a lot of new protocols, again, that have been added, including reducing the capacity of the ship, pre-board testing of passengers, and a lot more. Royal Caribbean has worked with the government of Singapore to create a set of thorough protocols designed to mitigate risk. When Royal Caribbean Group and Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings created the Healthy Sail Panel, they had to recognize nothing in society is ever completely safe, and you have to accept risk before crafting a response to it. One of the co-chairs of the Healthy Sail Panel, Governor Mike Leavitt, who is the former governor of Utah and Secretary of Health and Human Services under President George W. Bush, talked about risk and how that you have to be realistic about saying that there's no place in our society that you can say is 100% absolutely safe. We all manage risks every day. Whether we're walking across the street or opening a package of food, there's some kind of risk involved in all of that. The idea isn't that we can eliminate all that. The idea is that we can manage it, and understanding that perspective and recognizing that it requires judgment to do this well. So the result of all of this was a robust tiered response plan that not only went into effect when the cruise began, but certainly kicked in as soon as the positive case was identified on board. And for somebody looking at this as a cruise fan and saying, oh, gee, what's going to happen going forward? The bottom line is, number one, this is a learning opportunity. No doubt Royal Caribbean, Singapore, and maybe even the CDC here in the United States is going to look at what happened and how can we improve on that. And in addition, we can also take solace in the fact that this wasn't the end of the world. This wasn't a major catastrophe. Rather, the system kicked in, worked as intended, and the result was a lot of people got off a cruise ship safely, in an orderly manner, and essentially the plan they laid out went into action and was not just stopped in its tracks. But the fact that this has been a false positive has kind of changed the narrative a little bit. Initially, this was all about making sure the spread of the virus wasn't going anywhere. But now some cruise fans are kind of questioning, is this really how it's going to go? Are they going to stop cruises in their tracks because of one case? Seems a little much for some people, while others certainly see it as an opportunity to err on the side of caution. In my opinion, I think there's some truth to both of that. Number one, I think that if you're going to be holding cruises to a standard in which one case is one too many and the cruise must stop there, that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. On top of that, you've also got the impact of the vaccine coming down the pike, which I think is going to change the whole narrative of really everything we're seeing going forward. A lot of what we're seeing here in December, I believe, and kind of hope as well, that it's going to change quite a bit when we get into the spring and even the summertime, but we'll have to do a video on that when we get to that point. That being said, I do think Royal Caribbean, regardless, is under the gun here, and they've got to err on the side of caution. First and foremost, some of these protocols are coming down from the Singaporean government. Part of Royal Caribbean's agreement with the government of Singapore is to conduct these cruises with their blessing, and that does include some changes and protocols that the Singaporean government is requiring. Regardless of all of this, this is all about PR, because this story, regardless of the fact that it has turned out to be a false positive, has garnered a huge amount of interest from everyone and everybody saying, oh, look, there's another COVID case on a cruise ship. Look at that, right? Never mind the fact that it was a false positive and the protocols kicked in. So Royal Caribbean and pretty much every other cruise line is still dealing with really adhering to a world in which they're being treated unfairly, but it is the way it is. And if you can kick and pout and shout about it, that's okay, but you're also not going to have any cruises to go with. So they've got to go this super slow. And as I mentioned earlier, as the vaccine gets out there, as the public health emergency risks start to lower, I think there's going to be a wider appetite for cruises. And certainly I think there's going to be an opportunity here to have cruises conducted in a safe manner. And on top of all of this, as I mentioned earlier, it's also a learning opportunity, and I would not be surprised to see some new protocol changes as a result of what happened here on Quantum of the Seas. With all that being said, I want to hear what your thoughts are on this incident. Let me know in the comments below of this video. And while you're down there, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on your notifications so that way you get notified when we have brand new Royal Caribbean videos to share with you here on our channel. Thanks for watching. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.